section drawing of the trench through the wall. The yellow is our earthen embankment. The top part eroded away. Here's our stone retaining wall right there. Now there were some earlier fortifications here, and here are the walls that Garstang had dated to the time of Joshua. Unfortunately, that's early bronze. That's the time of Abraham. But there was a series of these embankments. Here's an early one. Here's a second one. Here's the third one out here. Then, at the base of the stone retaining wall, there's this huge pile of bricks that Kenyon discovered. And on the right is her description of these bricks. They're pinkish in color. They're very distinctive. She says, fallen red bricks piling nearly to the top of the revetment. And you can see it right here in the sketch, almost to the top of that revetment. These probably came from the wall on the summit of the bank or the brickwork above the revetment. Well, that's interesting. She's saying these fallen bricks, this big pile, and it says right on the drawing, fallen red bricks, came from the city wall that had collapsed. But she never related that to the Bible at all, because in her scheme of things, that had happened 150 years before Joshua, before the Israelites came into the land. But here's the evidence of the walls that fell down, right there. Now, even though those walls fell, that stone facing wall was still there. Technically, that's not really a wall. It's just a facing. But it's 15 feet high. Now, how are the Israelites going to get up over that? The Bible says they went up into the city. They're marching around out here. How are they going to get over that thing? Well, notice how these bricks fell. They fell in such a way as they formed a ramp. And all they had to do was climb up over the pile of collapsed bricks from the walls, and then up over that stone revetment, up the embankment, up into the city. Now, this is not the only place where this has been found. The Germans found it in a number of places around the town. In fact, every place they've dug up against that stone facing there, they have found a big pile of collapsed mud bricks. The Italians found the same thing. Here's our stone revetment. Right in here. It's a little difficult to see in my picture, but when you're there, you can clearly see pinkish collapsed mud bricks. My foot is on some right here. And this is another picture taken by a friend of mine, again, showing those collapsed mud bricks in that same area. And so the evidence is still being uncovered today of the fallen walls of Jericho. Well, if the walls fell, what about Rahab's house? Because the Bible tells us that she lived in the city wall. There's different translations, but her house was somehow built into the city wall. You remember the story when the spies went there. She let them down by a rope through the window or opening, for the house she lived in was part of the city wall. So the young men who had done the spying went in and brought out Rahab. This is later on, after the Israelites conquered the city. They went in, brought out Rahab, her father, mother, brother, all those who belonged to her. You remember she put that red rope out the window so that they would know which house was hers. So her house survived. Well, if the walls fell, how could Rahab's house have survived? Well, the archaeology, I think, gives us an answer. Now, on the right is just an artist's reconstruction of Rahab's house, built actually against the city wall. And again, the Hebrew is very precise here. For the house she lived in was, in the Hebrew, Bakir Hahoma, against the vertical surface of the city wall, is the literal translation. Translators have had a dickens of a time with this passage, and if you look at different translations, there's all different ways of understanding this. But when you translate it literally, their house was built against the vertical surface of the wall, and that's how our artist has reconstructed it. And in fact, that's exactly what the Germans found when they excavated up in this area. Up to the northern part of the tell, the city wall was still standing to a considerable height. The Germans, this is a section from their dig, found it standing as high as 9 feet still in 1907. Garstang found a good bit of it still standing right here, and this photo on the right shows you that mud brick wall right up here on top of the stone retaining wall. And then Kenyon also found a bit here still a meter or so high. And so it appears that on the north, for a short distance, the wall did not fall. And here's a photo on the left from the German dig, and here's the mud brick wall right here on top of the stone wall, and up against it are houses built right up against that brick wall. And this is apparently where Rahab's house was, built against that outer city wall, and the wall did not fall in this particular area, and Rahab's house was preserved. Again, our artist's reconstruction showing Rahab's house and the flax on the roof and so on. Okay, well, we're running out of time, so I need to wrap it up here. On the left here is a plan of the German excavation. Here's our stone facing here. This is the mud brick wall coming along here, and look at these buildings built right up against that mud brick wall. And all of these buildings are on the slope, that rampart between the lower wall and the upper wall. Not the best place to build your house between these city walls. Probably this was sort of the slum area. For those who could not afford a house up on the top, they built it on the rampart, and so probably Rahab lived in the poorer part of town. Now, you can actually trace this stone retaining wall around most of the mound of Jericho. Here's a picture on the right where we see it sticking out there on the north side of the tell, and you can actually follow the path of the Israelites and walk around Jericho. It takes about a half an hour to walk around the tell. The total area, including the rampart, the fortification system, is about 9 acres. Up on top, the upper city there is about 6 acres. So it's not a huge place. And there wouldn't have been many people living in there, a couple thousand maybe. Well, once the Israelites got inside, we're told they burned the city and everything in it, except they took the precious metals out and they went into the treasury of the Lord's house. And you remember the Israelites were commanded not to plunder Jericho. On the right's a plan of the areas dug by Garstang here. He dug quite a large area. And the area dug by Kenyon, where she found the thick layer of ash from the burning of the city. And all across this area, it had been severely burned by fire. Just another